Welcome to episode 357 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. Joining me in a moment is Victor Falkenklev. Victor is the CEO of Swedish delivery company Falkenklev Logistik, and we're going to talk about how he and the team have been electrifying their delivery fleet. Joining me on the line is Victor Falkenklev. Victor is the CEO of Falkenklev Logistik, a delivery logistics company based in southern Sweden. Victor, welcome to the Postal Hub podcast. Why don't we start, before we get into the meat of our discussion today, why don't you tell us a little bit about the company, the area that you serve, the kind of fleet that you have?
Thank you. Nice to be here. We have a family-owned business company, started 1957. Our biggest customer has always been DHL. It was called ASG from the beginning, and then we moved on to DHL. And a couple of years ago, I employed a few people on the office so I could get some time to looking forward, and it was clear to me that I wanted to do something for the environment. At this time, we purchased an old family farm up in northern Skåne, and it was a huge amount of land, and I was thinking about what we're going to do with all that land. And we started looking into a solar park. So we started developing a big solar park, and that was going to create a lot of energy. And since we have 140 trucks in our fleet, I got to thinking about using that energy to our fleet that was driven by diesel at the moment. So that was the first step with the solar park, and then I started looking into the charging situation, and there was some subsidies we can get from the Swedish government. So we got 50% to build a charging park in Malmö. So we ended up with Sweden's biggest charging station for heavy trucks, and it was finished in 2022. And the next step was the vehicles. So we purchased 5 Scania electric vehicles delivered in late 2022. And then we drove them, and the drivers tried, and we saw that it worked good in our field. We drive mostly quite short routes, Malmö, Lund. So it's electrified vehicles it's good for our type of driving. And then next step, I wanted to do something bigger. So I talked to DHL and asked them if they were interested in do like a big investment for the future. So us at Falkenklev Logistik ordered 90 new electric vehicles, and DHL are going to help us on the journey, because sadly the electric vehicles are quite a lot of more expensive than the diesel options available. So we need that little bit of help from our customer to make this happen. So when we get these vehicles delivered late 2025, beginning of 2026, we will be quite a long way of our route to 100% electrification. So we're really looking forward to try this in the huge scale. So when we get this, we have about 92% of the fleet electrified, because we have a lot of small vans electrified since earlier as well. So we only have 8% left 2026, and that's the little bit tricky part. These last 8%. That's the long haul during the night and much heavier loads, truck and trailer. So we really thinking hard now how we're going to solve that last 8%. But the technology is moving forward. So I'm pretty confident that Scania, Volvo, or Mercedes will have the options available soon to make it happen.
So the transformation of your fleet has been quite rapid then. It was only a few years ago that you had a 100% diesel fleet.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about being 92% electric in a year and a half's time. That's a really rapid transformation. You talked about your own leadership there, your vision. How have the drivers reacted? What's their feedback been? The people actually drive the vans and the trucks.
Yeah, good question. That's probably one of the biggest upsides, that the drivers really love the electric trucks. It's so quiet and it's so nice to drive. So for me, that and the environment is the main pros with this. So that's really lovely for the drivers.
And let's talk about the practicalities of using electric vehicles. You've mentioned that there's that difficult bit to finish off in terms of electrification, that 8%. But if you're already using vans, you said, light trucks and things like that, what have some of the learnings been from your perspective? For example, operating in extreme temperatures or operating over distance and things like that. What are some of the practical learnings?
Yeah, of course, when we see colder temperatures in the winter, we see the range drop. So for us, it's important that we have a lot of charging opportunities. We started a separate company called Refill. That's like a charging company. We have built the site in Malmo. We built the site in Perstorp. We're going to build in Helsingborg, Hörby. So we will have a few of these refill sites all around southern Skåne. So that will help us mostly during the winter when we have to maybe charge one extra time. But otherwise, other than that, really no big issues with the trucks, working very well. And it's just the range that drops a little bit.
You mentioned that you built a solar farm on a property in the region. So is that all of the electricity that's used in your charging stations, is that generated by the solar farm, or does it come from a variety of sources?
Our vision is that 100% of our electric trucks will be driven by self-made electricity. So with this solar park being finished, we are about, when we have 100% electric vehicles, we will need about 7-8 million kilowatt hours a year. And we are about now 1.5. So we have to build more solar parks. We fill every roof we have, every side, every fence, whatever we can find, we fill it with solar panels. So we're going to get that number up so we cover the whole the year that the trucks produce. Some of the sites, the solar sites, will not be as close to the trucks. So that energy will go out on the grid. So it's not going to be 100% kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour. It's going to be more like on a yearly basis. So we're going to see what all of the 140 trucks will have used for 1 year. And we will make sure that we have produced more than that.
You mentioned earlier that you've had support from DHL being your major client. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that relationship and about the support that you can get from DHL, especially since DHL has been very public in its commitment to basically eliminating emissions or reducing emissions as much as possible. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that relationship and about how you've been able to partner with DHL on this project?
So, as you said, DHL really want to do something great. And that was maybe my hope when I got in contact with them about this huge investment. So I had big hopes and they delivered. So they are going to help us every month so we can cover the extra cost of the trucks, because Without them, we will maybe 6 months and then we will be out of business because it's sadly quite a lot more expensive. So it's the government. The government has some work to do. They have to increase the help for electric vehicles. So I hope they will. Today we have 25% subsidies of a new electric truck, and it should be 40% if we're going to make it happen.
When it comes to actually having the trucks on the road, and you mentioned government there, have you got? Do you have to deal with zero emission zones in the centre of any cities or low emission zones? Is this part of the whole project as well? Is it these regulations are coming in?
There is some projects up in Stockholm, but for us here in Malmö, we have a zone in the city centre, but that zone is Euro 6, so it's not a sharp zone. You can have a diesel truck from 2012 that is Euro 6. So for me, it's not a climate zone even. It's like it should be much more only electric or maybe biogas or something like that should be allowed. I think.
With regard to the ongoing costs, you've mentioned the big upfront cost of acquiring an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
When it comes to the ongoing costs, things like maintenance and the charging costs, how do they compare to running a conventional diesel-powered fleet?
When I got into this, I thought it were going to be much more cheaper to drive the electric truck. But once again, complaining on the government, they recently did a huge effort to lower the diesel prices in Sweden. So that when they did that, the interest of a electric truck plummeted. It was nobody that was interested because it was so cheap to drive diesel, because the government lowered the taxes on diesel. And for me, I couldn't understand how they can do that, because everybody see what happens in the world, and they lowered the price on diesel. So now the maintenance is a little bit less on the electric, and the fuel, if you say electric versus diesel, it's quite comparable, but it should be more cheap to drive electric. So I hope that the diesel price will go up, and I hope price of the electric will go down, and then it will be easier to do this.
It's a really interesting point about the local taxes and the local impact of government decisions on diesel prices and how that flows through to the incentives, I suppose, for electrification. So if you were talking to other fleet managers, other people who own their own logistics companies, their own delivery companies, what would you say to them if they were thinking about electrification? What would you say to them, this is the first thing you need to think about, or the first steps you need to take towards electrification?
Probably the first thing you should do is talk to your transport buyer, because we have to have the transport buyers with us. They have to pay a little bit more money to make this green transport. And for me, I see big companies in Sweden that have huge amount of money and they will not spend one dime more, and it's a really pity. So start with the transport buyers. This is going to get a lot easier because we have this CSRD from the EU. We have more demands on reporting about the environment. So it will be easier because a lot of companies will get more pressure to report all of their numbers, and they will see that they're not doing enough. So there will be more pressure moving forward, and so I really hope that will make it a little bit easier for the transport buyer to pay a little bit more. And so that's the main thing. And then you have to talk with your local electric company, or so you can get the connection to the grid and have some chargers.
Victor, just before we wrap up, we've talked about a lot of the practicalities and the unvarnished realities of running an electric delivery fleet, but we haven't really Let's come back to what you initially said when you're talking about wanting to do something positive for the environment. I mean, there have got to be a lot of positives about running an electric vehicle fleet. So can you just share some of the other positive outcomes that you've seen out of running and converting your fleet to being electric?
Yeah, good question. Maybe the main thing for me is that it feels so good to do this. I have 3 small kids at home. It's so important that we do what we can. So that should be the main priority for everybody that help the future. And yeah, so it's just have the courage and do it. And in the future, I think for us at this moment, it's not going to be a financial good solution. But in a few years, I am 100% positive that it will also be a good financial decision, because it's going to happen quite a few things. The diesel will go up, and it's really good to get started early. So I feel it in whole my body that this is a good decision moving forward.
And this is part of being an early adopter, would you say? Is this an advantage of being an early adopter, is that if diesel prices do go up in a year's time or 2 years' time and more electric subsidies come in, or if there's more willingness from your customers to pay, that you'll be ideally placed. Is that part of the thinking?
Yeah, exactly. That's not the main reason that we're doing it, because the main reason is the environment. But there is other positives, exactly as you mentioned, being in the forefront.
Victor, this has been a fascinating discussion. We could keep on talking, but you actually have a company to run.
Yes, exactly.
So we're going to let you get back to running the company. And Victor, if people want to, is there any information that we can have? If we go to your website, can we find out a little bit more about your operations? What's the website?
Yeah, it's falkenklevlogistik.se. Maybe you can link it in the description, because just get in touch with me. I will love to help you.
So I'll put a link to the Falkenklev website on thepostalhub.com. So go to the episode page there and you'll find a link through to the website, and you can see a bit more about what Victor and the team have been up to. Victor Falkenklev, CEO at Falkenklev Logistik, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thank you.
Coming soon on the Postal Hub podcast, Hugh Craigie Hackett from Stamp Free and Milos Zlatkovic from Miley Technologies, and probably some other people before the end of the year. We'll see how we go. We're almost at the end of 2024 and you're all, flat out dealing with peak season and things like that. Anyway, please do subscribe to the podcast in your favourite podcast platform. Leave a review and a rating. A sly 5-star review would be nice. Or rating. Is it a review? A rating? Both. Do whatever you want. Write in the review 5 stars. That'd be ace. What else could you do? You could subscribe to the podcast on, I just said that, the podcast platform. Subscribe to the email newsletter. Go to thepostalhub.com and subscribe there. Follow me and the podcast on LinkedIn. Doesn't require a whole lot of effort. You just have to click follow. Find me on LinkedIn and click follow. You don't have to connect with me. Just click follow. Don't have to interact with me at all. Just, watch, observe, whatever you want to do. And if you don't want to interact with me, email me. Email me at ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.